Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to DSP versus the Internet, episode 58 for Sunday, the 31st of March, 2024. We are 2 parts in. This is part 3. I hope that you're enjoying the show. Good variety of stuff. I believe these 3 clips will actually be the last, these 2 clips are the last 2 Ultra member submissions, and then we're going to get to the standard submissions for the week. Okay? So, without further ado, when video games were simple. I don't think we'll be watching all 20 minutes, but maybe we'll give it a good chunk into this. Let's see. The classic PlayStation 1 boot up screen. Remember this? No, I take that back. This is PS2. This is PS2, correct? This is PS2. PS1 was just the PS logo. Yeah.
Do you ever think back to when video games were just simple? When games could just be games and you could be an idiot 6-year-old who can't figure out how to get off the starting island in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, you actually you got to hit the tree to get the coconuts. The coconuts will fall down.
Hit it.
Duh.
Yeah. It feels like back then they could just make anything they wanted to. Studios took chances, building experiences that, while not perfect, were still iconic. And don't get it twisted, all right? I like the AAA games we're getting right now. I'm definitely not saying that video games aren't fun anymore, but I can't help
Even though you
looking
made that
back
video.
at all these older games and missing the charm that they all had, especially compared to now. They definitely weren't all fantastic, but when I look back at them, they all just seem so whimsical and wonderfully simple to me. And sure, you know, that opinion is probably largely shaped around nostalgia, and it's more likely I miss the simpler times in my life, which we'll talk about nostalgia more towards the end of the video, but I do mean this literally. I adore the simplicity of the games from this era. When I talk about a time when video games were simple, I think a different time period probably comes to each of our heads, right? For you, it might be the PS1, or even the Atari if you're ancient and decaying. For me, I think of the PS2 and just all those
How dare you say
classic
that?
games from that console. Like Kingdom Hearts, Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, the weird game with the alien face on the cover that kind of freaked me out too much to pick up. The hundreds of stupid licensed games that came out around this time that were all just exactly the same, except that one. I loved that one. When every game didn't have to be a groundbreaking cinematic masterpiece, and it could just be a fun game. One aspect I really admire about those PS2 games is that they seem to prioritize gameplay and fun over anything. Whereas anymore, it seems gameplay gets sidelined by the cutscenes and the story. The gaming industry has changed.
And here's why. Here's why. Because back then, excuse me, the gaming industry was not seen as the biggest entertainment medium on the planet. Now it is. Video games are known to make more money than anything else combined. So because of that, now when a company goes into financing a game, they think this game is going to be the biggest blockbuster ever. It's going to make sales numbers and smash things and do, you know what I mean? Back then it was like, we're just making a game to be fun. And if it sells well, we hope to make enough money to make another one. And then we'll continue that. And hopefully we grow and prosper and get known as this game studio that makes good games. That's not what people are on it for anymore. Like literally, no. Now it's like there's a boardroom of fucking suits sitting there. How do we make the most money for the shareholders? Right? Wait, what? It's supposed to be art. It's supposed to be entertainment is art. It's not supposed to be everyone is Mr. Burns sitting there miserly figuring out how to pinch every penny out of the fucking industry. And that's how you lose creativity. That's how you lose innovation. That's how you get 1,000 samey games all copying each other. And you lose the feeling of just pure joy over playing a classic, meaningful, basic game. You know, and that's how it is today. And this has happened in every industry. This is not unprecedented. This has happened with music, which is why we have the homogenized bro country. This has happened with movies and television, which is why we have the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th reality show that's exactly the same as the last 10, right? It's all the same. It all keeps happening. The fucking 400th Ninja Turtles reboot. What the fuck? It's still Ninja Turtles? Aren't they like 70 now?
A lot over the years, okay? It's not your grandpa's GameCube anymore. We got esports teams and VR chat twerk-offs now. The Last of Us is a phenomenal game series that tells a familiar yet strikingly unique story and has some of the best character writing I've ever seen in a video game. Due to some not-so-careful redactions, we learned that on their latest entry, The Last of Us Part 2, Naughty Dog spent $220 million over the course of 6 years to develop the game. To put that into perspective, they developed the first Crash Bandicoot game for $1.7 million. With that $220 million, they delivered on these stunning, cutting-edge graphics, as well as creating a gripping narrative and overall impactful experience. But when you play these games, it becomes abundantly clear that The Last of Us does not embrace its identity as a video game at all. The gameplay loop consists of you walking around slowly, looking at everything like you're in a museum, maybe avoiding some mushroom zombies sometimes. And if you walk into an area with waist-height walls, you know some guys are gonna come out and try to shoot at you. The combat is passable at best, and over time just becomes a boring obstacle between you and the next cutscene. It really is a shame, you know, because the world they've built is so beautiful to look at, but there's nothing to touch. I'm all for story in a game, but it should never take precedent over the actual gameplay. And hey, I'm a problem solver, all right? I'm here to help you, Naughty Dog. I'm gonna tell you exactly what you have to do to fix this problem. You go through a couple of levels, you get us really hooked in, and then you give Ellie a fishtail and you have her swim around and sing a really bad song with Ariel from The Little Mermaid.
And the song's got to be really, really bad. Really, it's got to be horrible.
No, you're right. You can't do that, okay? It's a serious game with a serious tone. We don't need to do any of that. You know, no game has ever retained its serious tone while breaking immersion slightly for the sake of fun. It's never been done. It's not going to happen, all right? Bad example. I'm sorry. Let's look at the Insomniac Spider-Man games instead.
I have to agree with him. Like, what's happening today is so many games are trying to go ultra serious now. Like, everything is serious. It's a serious plot. It's a serious, but why? Because you're trying to make it a multi-million-dollar game that makes so much money, and you think the only way it'll do that, you can't have a kiddie game do that, right? It's got to be serious plot to get adults in, but kids also want to play it because it's serious, and you want what the adults have, right? So that's why GTA, right? It has to be serious, but there's some hilarity in there, but it's all drugs and killing and gangs, and he's right. It's not about back then. It was like you could have games that were frivolous, not ultra serious plots, you know, fantasy, adventure, the feeling of adventure rather than the feeling of, oh my God, everyone's going to die, right? It's different. It's very different. I understand that games got more mature for more adults as the ages of gamers got increased. So did the content. It got more mature. But at the same time, are these games truly fun to play? Or is it that you're having fun with the story, you're having fun with the serious tones? I'll be honest, you know, playing Last of Us 2, I don't think it was fun to play at all. I can understand if you liked the story, you probably thought the game was great, but that game was not fun to play. It was a chore, and it was incredibly dark, grim, and really just a bad time. Like, I felt bad when I played the game. I don't want to play a video game to feel bad. I'm trying to enjoy myself. Well, I'm not enjoying as Ellie is going through murdering people left, right, up, and down. She's not killing infected. She's just murdering people. She's angry. Like, what kind of a game is this? Right?
And less based in realism. They had a phenomenal story, except for the third act of the second game. I'm still pretty mad about that. Peter should have been Venom. I'm standing on that business. And the gameplay here. Oh my God. They got it perfect. They did it. They did what Naughty Dog couldn't do. Sometimes. I could web sling around the city all day, and they had their Little Mermaid moment with Venom and I guess Mary Jane now. That was all right. But what I want to talk to you about specifically are the mini games. You know, those little moments where it's like, oh, Peter's a scientist. Here's some scientist stuff. Match up these different colors and lines because he's a scientist. It's science stuff. Those have got to be the worst mini games ever made. And Insomniac knows it, because why else would they give you an option to skip them? It's all right, whatever. They didn't come up that much in the first one.
I didn't even know that.
Get over it. At least I got to skip them and move on. Maybe they'll take them out by the second one. Wrong. It's different this time. Now it's in 3D and you got to take out the bad shapes. It's worse. It's somehow so much worse in this one. And I know it's a relatively small problem to point out, but man, just situations like this just make me miss games like Sly Cooper that would put you in a submarine and say, there's crabs coming to steal the treasure. You have to shoot all the crabs and make sure they don't come get it. They didn't bother trying to make it make sense within the story. They just made something fun.
Right.
I don't think every AAA game needs to be good.
Games for the sake of fun. Games for the sake of having fun. What happened to that? And I understand that people have different opinions of what's fun. For one person, literally just picking up a controller and shooting stuff could be fun. For another person, overcoming a challenge could be fun. Right? Like, some people say, well, how are FromSoft games fun? Well, some people think that overcoming a great obstacle or a great insurmountable odds gives you a feeling of accomplishment that's fun, right? So everyone has a different opinion on that. But in general, even with fun being subjective, okay, you can still just on a cursory glance at a video game, say, oh, that's something that looks like I'd be interested in because it looks like it's going to be an enjoyable experience versus, oh, that looks like it's going to be a crazy chore with a reward at the end. You can see the difference, right? Like, he's right. When you look at the silly fun of classic games, Super Mario Brothers is fun within the first 10 seconds you're playing the game. You'll like the cartoony graphics. You like the little jump sound like boing, boing. The music's playing. It's nice. You're hitting blocks. You're looking for secret items. You're jumping on Goombas. Immediately, you're immersed in a fun world. There's no 5-hour cutscene to get you into Super Mario Brothers. Everyone picks it up and likes it at the first glance. Correct? How many people said, man, fucking Super Mario Brothers sucks when you first started playing it? No one says that. All games have lost that now. Really. It's like, here's your new video game. Sorry, we have to introduce a world with 12 hours of story elaboration, complex character arcs and plots, and then we're going to teach you how to play the game in a 5-hour tutorial. Huh? A 5-hour tutorial. You could have went and worked for 5 hours. You know what I'm saying? And made money doing it rather than being educated on how to play the game for 5 hours. The idea of simple fun is gone. It's been lost as the industry has attempted to make games more adult. That's true.
Games are at their best when they embrace their identity as video games and deliver experiences only they can. It seems like they really went in this direction because these cinematic games have the most wide reach. They don't really want to risk it with something that might not appeal to everyone, right? We could never get an insane concept like Kingdom Hearts made today. The idea of taking these two insanely different franchises, Final Fantasy, a JRPG series, and the Disney multiverse, and mashing them together in some big world-hopping adventure led by a character nobody's ever heard of. That is just not something we would get today. And do you know how this idea came to be? Well, apparently back in the 90s, Square Enix and Disney both had offices in the same building. And one fateful day, an employee from Square Enix and an employee from Disney just so happened to end up in the same elevator. And they got to talking and they were like, hello, Disney employee I just met. Wouldn't it be cool to mash up our universes together and then send some kid around them beating everything up with a key? And that, kids, is how Kingdom Hearts came to be. I read it on nextshark.com, so you know it's true. If there ever was a video game that embraced its identity as a video game, it is goddamn Kingdom Hearts. This game makes no sense, but is so much fun. Why the hell is Cloud from Final Fantasy making a deal with Hades and fighting in the hero games on Olympus? I don't know, who cares? I'm Sora and I'm gonna hit this big dog with a key I found. When you travel between the different Disney worlds in Kingdom Hearts, sometimes the art style, the character designs, and even entire gameplay mechanics will change based on where you go. I keep referencing the Little Mermaid level in Kingdom Hearts because genuinely when I played this, it was so mind-blowing to me. I love that even at a point so deep into this game, they were still willing to change the fundamental mechanics of how you play it just to keep things fresh. And don't even get me started on the goddamn Goomy ship. I don't know if it's Goomy or Gummy. I've been saying Goomy. When I first played it, it was kind of annoying at first. I was thinking, why am I doing this? But now anymore, I'm traveling between the worlds and I'm up in the Goomy ship. I'm just shooting stuff. Why the hell do they need a spaceship to get between the Disney worlds? I don't know why they thought they needed a spaceship, but it was awesome. And it was the Goomy ship, and shut the fuck up. I'm not entirely sure if this is the case, but it really seems to me like when games were cheaper to make, studios were willing to make pretty much anything and just throw it out there. And listen,
when the game's cheap to make, you will take risks, you will do things outside the box, and you will create innovation. When a game is a $200 million game, you have to ensure that this game is going to appeal to the widest audience and make money, so you take no chances. You literally just go for what everyone expects so that you can get those sales, right? It's sad. I mean, honestly, and this is kind of ironic, I will say, Kingdom Hearts is actually a victim of this itself. It's funny he uses Kingdom Hearts 1 as his example because Kingdom Hearts 3 completely did everything he's describing that's bad. It basically homogenized the game into the point where all of the fun innovations were removed and it just became a button masher. It's not, you're in a new world, it plays differently, new introduction of characters. Instead, Kingdom Hearts 3 was just press buttons, and you could beat everything in the game easily. Zero challenge. And why did they do that? to appeal to the widest audience so they could sell more copies. It didn't make any sense. It took it from a video game into like a guided mashing tour of Disney. So even they did the wrong thing and screwed it all up, right? Like, wow. Anyway, see, I really like this video essay, but I mean, we've now watched it for about 15 minutes, and it's like, I definitely want to get to the next video to end this part. I don't want to just watch this video, the whole part, but I totally agree what he's saying. I do. He may not be dead on correct on everything, but yes, simplicity and low budgets allowed them to innovate and do crazy things and then make better games. Today, everything is ruined by a boardroom of people. Mr. Burns, I got to make money on this. We have to appease the shareholders, and then the whole industry gets screwed up. We just had the CEO of Xbox, Phil Spencer, actually just said in an interview at Game Developers Conference, console gaming is at a downturn, but I run a business and have to make profits. So the best way to do that is that we have to lay off employees until there's an upswing in the industry again. Phil Spencer, you are the CEO of Xbox. You're the reason the industry has a downturn. You're literally saying because you suck at your job, people have to lose their jobs. And that's okay in his eyes. And that's who's running gaming today. Not creative people who are able to make great games and innovate and make it feel fun, but people who sit in a boardroom, profits. And then when they mess up, they lay off employees. That's the gaming industry today. You know what I'm saying? It's not even anything like what it was like when they were making games back then. It's not even close. And that's why we have this. We have to get people who are creative back into positions of power. If we don't, gaming will just become a homogenized piece of crap, just like Hollywood is now, right? How many times in Hollywood do we see the same exact movie remade? How many Fast and Furious movies will there actually be until we realize we have to stop fucking making these games? How many Michael Bay movies that are exactly the same 3D formula movie? First it's Transformers, then it's fucking Ninja Turtles. How many more of these can we pump out until we realize there's no value to it? Yes, it makes money, but there's no value to what you're making. It's a worthless waste of everyone's time. You do realize you're going to die someday, right? Everyone out there who's watching, I'm sorry to shock you with this one. We're all going to pass away. We're finite creatures. And if we sit around all day with schlock in our day, you're going to find that you're like a 60-year-old person sitting alone. And you're what do I do in my life? I was watching crap. I was playing crap. I was doing crap. I didn't do anything meaningful in my life, right? Yeah, it's sad. It's freaking sad, man. All right, let's move on to the next one. This next one is a true crime video about something that I'm not aware of. I just read the title of it when I added it to the playlist. And this is the final Ultra member submission for the week. And then we go to submission level tier, which is the randomized playlist. So let's see what we got here.
There's been a shooting. That's what Jimmy Rupert calmly told the operator when he called the police around 9:30 p.m. on Easter Sunday in 1975. When the first officer arrived, there was no obvious sign that anything was wrong in the little white house in Hamilton, Ohio. The only sign of trouble was Jimmy waiting for him at the front door. When he got closer, he could make out two small bodies on the living room floor behind Jimmy. Jimmy didn't say anything. He just watched as the officer called for backup. Then he moved aside so he could come in. 5 children lay dead on the living room floor. The youngest was lying on the floor at the foot of the couch. In his outstretched right hand, he was still holding his chocolate Easter egg.
Wow.
He was only 4. That gruesome scene was just the beginning. In the kitchen, there were 6 more dead.
What?
The Easter dinner was still on the stove. The bodies crowded the small house, making it almost impossible to walk.
Did he poison his whole family? That's what it sounds like. It sounds like he literally poisoned his whole family. Oh my God.
Jimmy murdered his entire family that day. His mother, his older brother, his brother's wife, and their 8 kids.
Wow.
The youngest was only 4 years old. He shot each of them twice. Once in the head, once in the chest. He said later it took him less than 10 minutes to kill all 11 people. After he massacred them all, he changed his clothes and then waited 3 hours before he called police. I'm Chris, and this is True Crime Recaps. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. My wife Amy and I are here every week bringing you all the crime in half the time.
I've never heard of this channel. This is 2 years old. 35,000 views. I mean, moderate. I would argue moderate views. It's okay. It's not great. It's okay for YouTube. But, man, the things people do. So, of course, now the question is why? Why did he murder his whole family? I find it, what's weird about this story already, my first initial thought is, I thought he poisoned them all. Like, they all ate the same meal and they all died at the same time. Because if you have someone who's crazy going through a house shooting people, doesn't everyone run? And if they run, they're not all going to be in the same 1 to 2 rooms of the house. You would think they would have went like upstairs and locked themselves into bedrooms and side rooms in the bathroom. Tried to jump out a window. Correct? Like, how did this happen? How could this possibly have happened this way?
If you like what you see, please.
Let's fast forward to it.
It was so bad that when I went into the basement, you had to be careful because the blood would seep through the floorboards and drip on you.
Oh, God.
The blood stained the floorboards in the basement and can still be seen today. At first, they didn't know why he'd snapped. Jimmy was known as a loner, bookish. He was smart, but he didn't have a lot going on. He was 2 weeks shy of his 41st birthday.
That's actually true. Lady Charisma says usually videos like this get suppressed by the YouTube algorithm. So 35,000 is a pretty good number for a true crime video. Very true. I didn't even think about that. You're right. The freaking algorithm probably would have suppressed a video like this because of the violence.
He had no job, no money to speak of, and he was living with his mother. His older brother Leonard was the family's golden boy. He went to college, graduated with an engineering degree, and got a high-paying job. Then he married Jimmy's ex-girlfriend, and together they had 8 kids. Jimmy flunked out of college after only 2 years. He couldn't hold a job, and he lost what little savings he had when the stock market crashed in 1973. By 1975, his only reasons for getting up in the morning were drinking and target shooting with his 4 guns. His childhood wasn't exactly a Disney movie either. He'd been sick as a kid. When he was arrested, he was 5'6" and weighed only 135 pounds. Growing up, his mother never missed a chance to let him know she had wanted a girl instead.
Wow.
His father wasn't any better. He tormented him up until the day he died when Jimmy was 12. Then, his older brother took over. At 16, Jimmy had had enough. He tried to hang himself with a bedsheet, but failed. Mentally, he spiraled for years. He became more and more paranoid. He thought his mother and brother were secretly sabotaging him. He was sure his brother was tampering with his car, an old Volkswagen. He was convinced the 2 of them were trying to, quote, discredit him by telling the FBI he was a communist and a homosexual.
Whoa.
He claimed the feds were tapping his phones at home and at his favorite bar, the 19th Hole. A month before the Easter Massacre, he bought more bullets and silencers. On March 29, 1975, the day before the massacre, a witness saw him target practicing with tin cans near the river. Later, he went to the 19th Hole like he did most nights and started complaining to the bartender about his mother. She was trying to evict him because he didn't have a job, and he was going to do something about it, he said. The bartender said he left around 11, but came back later. She asked him if he'd solved the problem. No, not yet, he said, and kept drinking until closing time at 2:30 a.m. The next afternoon, his brother, his wife, and their 8 kids came over to Grandma's house for Easter. Everything seemed normal, even the fact that Jimmy was upstairs in his room like he always was. Downstairs, it was happy chaos. You know, the big family is all together for a holiday kind of noise, except even louder because the house was so small. Only 1,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms upstairs and a living room and kitchen downstairs. At 4:30 that afternoon, the kids had just come inside after their Easter egg hunt in the yard. Their grandma was in the kitchen making sloppy joes since the family had already had a formal dinner at their other grandparents' house after church. Around 5 o'clock, Jimmy came downstairs. He went into the kitchen to say hello, and with what he later called a mocking smile, his brother said, "How's that Volkswagen, Jimmy?" And with that sentence, every paranoid thought in Jimmy's head was validated.
Wow.
He turned around and went back upstairs. An hour later, he came back carrying his 3 shotguns and a rifle. He went to the kitchen and shot his brother Leonard first. Then he shot Leonard's wife, Alma, his mother, Charity, and 3 of the children, Michael, Thomas, and Carol Rupert. They were 16, 15, and 13. Jimmy leaned his rifle up against the fridge. He grabbed another gun and started for the living room. His 17-year-old nephew Leonard Jr. tried to stop him, but he didn't stand a chance. Then he sat on the couch and one by one murdered the remaining 4 kids. Anne, David, Teresa, and little John. They were 12, 11, 9, and 4.
Oh my God.
When their bodies were on the floor around him, he got up and walked around the house and shot each of them again, just to be sure. Insane? Definitely. But clinically so? According to the prosecutor...
Oh, so now they're going to try to figure out if he's clinically insane or not. To me, again, the only question I have is the same question I had at the beginning. If he started firing on people, you hear gunshots. You immediately run, correct? How did he manage to kill everyone? No one ran and got to another room? I mean, he didn't have any automatic weapons. It was, what did they say? Rifle, shotgun, handgun. They're all single shots. So it's not like he was able to get shots off fast. So how the hell did no one run from this guy? Even kids, they would have scattered. They would have run to other rooms. They would have, you know, hidden in places. That's a little weird to me. That's the only thing I don't understand about it. I mean, obviously it's horrible. I'm not saying anyone should have done any better. I'm just very confused about that one fact.
He was crazy like a fox. There was about $300,000 in life insurance and investments coming to him if he was found not guilty for any reason, even by reason of insanity. Today, that would be the equivalent of more than $1 million. Was the whole thing premeditated so he could inherit his family's money?
I'm not sure that
His
would work.
first-
I would think there's a clause in life insurance that if you're the reason that someone dies, that you can't get the payout for their death. I would think. Maybe then again, this was 1975. Maybe they didn't have anything like that back then. But if someone's proven insane, how could they then benefit financially from the death of someone they just killed? That doesn't make sense.
Trial ended in a mistrial. At the second trial, he pleaded guilty by reason of insanity and was convicted on all 11 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison. But that's not quite the end of Jimmy's story. On appeal, he was granted a third trial where mental health professionals from both the defense and the prosecution argued about his state of mind. Was he actually insane and had just snapped? Finally, in 1982, he was found guilty of only 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of his mother and brother. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity for shooting the other 9 family members.
So they're saying that he intentionally murdered his mother and brother because they were the ones that he had the vendetta against, but he had no reason to hate everyone else, but he was already crazy by the time he killed the first 2. So the other kills were because he was insane. I don't know how anyone could ever think to prove that in a court of law. So that's wild that this actually happened in the court of law.
And because evil people just never seem to die, Jimmy is currently still alive. He's serving his 2 life sentences at the Franklin Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio. He's been denied parole 3 times. His next parole hearing is in 2025. He will be 91 years old.
He's still alive.
To this day, the Rupert family massacre is still one of the deadliest shootings inside a private residence in U.S. history. And that's your recap.
Holy crap. Yeah, happy Easter. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that heartwarming Easter tale, dude. Wow. All right, well, that is the final Ultra member submission for this week. Now we will move to the playlist of submissions tier, which is people who are of the submission level membership, and it goes into a random order. So we'll see what kind of videos people had for this week. All right, but anyway, thank you guys. Yeah, I know. Happy Easter, everybody. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're enjoying. Sometimes we watch some heavy stuff, huh? And I'll see you in the next part.